police oversight, not just in the last 3 weeks, but over the past 5, 6 years on the time period I've been on the city council, pressing for civilian or lots of new conversation about a particular model, how to get there, how to go forward. And my objective I'd like to take maybe 10 minutes and just talk about where we are with the proposal referred to as the Tornick-Kennedy proposal. Out of respect for the mayor and his position, I put him first. I also asked the mayor, as a member of the Public Safety Committee, to really help take the lead. That was strategically important to get more of the community involved in the dialogue. And I think I achieved that objective in a strong cross-section of the community from different economic levels, from different races, ethnicities, etc. And I think that is extremely important when you're talking about moving to a model that has not existed in the city of Pasadena, and we have attempted to bring to fruition and did not make it the last time around. So because we've strategized differently and we have been focused, whether it's the vice mayor of the city of Pasadena asking for a model that he referred to more of as a community model, not his model, or the Tornick-Kennedy proposal, which is a proposal that is extremely intelligent in the context that it seeks to move us from zero oversight, in my view, even though there are claims that the Public Safety Committee, which I chair, is that community oversight, a model that is actually effective and working, one that we can take a look at as a community and it's working, it's not working, it needs to be modified, but we can't get to that discussion unless we have something in place. Interesting enough, at the last Monday City Councilmember, a whole lot of histrionics took place, but also some very helpful comments and dialogue. One of the Councilmember Wilson, when he said, we would be having a different conversation today if we adopted what Councilmember Kennedy and others had put forth 5 years ago. And then we would have learned so much more. Dare say at the time, I could barely get a second on the council to move the dialogue forward. Then an epiphany occurred also last. Fifth vote said he's not for charter change, but he is for the proposal that's on the table related to Tornick-Kennedy. That's a monumental shift than where we were 5 years ago. Now, what are the real differences between what Ron, the vice mayor, has offered and what Tornick-Kennedy has offered? Vice Mayor Hampton has offered a motto that requires a vote of the populace, of the voters in the city of Pasadena. It has to be put on the ballot. And you need at least 5 votes to do that. I didn't have, or Mr. Hampton have 5 votes. And what is Mr. Hampton seeking? He's seeking the ability to compel testimony, subpoena duces tecum to compel documents, recordings, and other materials for the purpose of finding out the truth in an investigation. That's one area that he's seeking. And then 2, he's seeking an independent auditor. Well, excuse me. He's seeking a commission that would not report to the city manager form of government. It would be in some respect higher and possibly report to the city council, or could possibly be elected outright through a vote of the people. And then thirdly is this independent auditor position. And his view is that that person must not report to the city manager. Well, a lot of those ideas that characterized as from the community. So what would we have now? The whole impetus for getting this back on the minds of not just Pasadena, but the whole country is the heinous slaughter, murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. It has set the world on fire, and particularly, and then other minority men generally have been treated by systems, particularly law enforcement across the United States. That's why we're here today, because God sent an angel and called him in. No, that death has under people of goodwill all around the globe to say something must change. And to bring it home to Pasadena, we have said, both Vice Mayor Hampton, Mayor Terry Tornick, and Councilmember Kennedy, that the former model of policing in the city of Pasadena cannot stand. There must be reasonable, intelligent oversight. So it's no longer a discussion about putting the matter on the ballot for the voters. There were not 5 votes to move that forward. Having said that, a group of concerned residents who are voters want to put a measure on a future ballot, they can do that by gathering the necessary signatures to modify whatever I believe will come out in the month of August of the Tornick-Kennedy proposal. Now, are we at the council now? We're debating essentially what was presented 5 years ago by recommendation after some serious contemplation, the mayor moving it to a vote. The proposal that has its genesis out of the Catherine Olson and police oversight models for the city of Pasadena. And that was done in April 18, 2016. After that report was received by the Public Safety Committee and the City Council, the mayor put on the agenda what, in essence, is what all of you have seen, I hope, and that is the agenda report that came to public safety, and subsequently, by a vote of 3 members of the Public Safety Committee, not that they all 3 agreed, but they voted to move forward to the City Council for greater discussion. So the leveling of charges of backroom dark room, several of my colleagues, is just untrue. On the public safety, you have the vice mayor, you have the mayor, former city planner of the city of Pasadena. You have a former United States attorney, a prosecutor, and currently a litigator by the name of Steve Madison. So there's no backroom dealing of any kind. This is discussed in the public domain for you and others to comment on. Now, having said that, the model that Councilmember Hampton, which he called the community model, has been defeated by a 6-2 vote. We are at a place where the only consideration at the moment is the Tornick-Kennedy model. So what is that model? That model calls for an independent auditor. It calls for a community police oversight commission with 13 members appointed by the city council and nominated as follows: 1 by each member of the city council, including the mayor, 1 by the city manager, 1 by the chief of police, and 3 by community groups with specified qualifications. So you would receive under the reporting structure either directly to the city manager or possibly to the city council. We will make those modifications of the Tornick-Kennedy proposal at our next meeting. I believe will be Monday. Subsequent to that meeting, on what model we will adopt. But there is a meeting of the Public Safety Committee tomorrow at 3 p.m. and hopefully we'll take some testimony from my colleagues who are not supportive necessarily of the Tornick-Kennedy proposal, but have an opportunity to shape the outcome of the Tornick-Kennedy proposal. Tornick and Kennedy are on the aligned, but not necessarily Councilmember Madison and Vice Mayor Hampton. My goal is to obtain a unanimous vote of the council. There is no guarantee that I can do that or that we will do that. More likelihood is that we'll get the 5 votes. Now, at this point, I'd like to entertain some of the questions that some of you have already sent in, or I would invite Lena Kennedy or Susanna forward in terms of hearing those questions from the community.
Well, yes, I sent the question. I'll send the questions. Oh, got it.
Susanna, that were mailed in, and then I'll answer it so everyone on the call can hear the question.
Perfect. You ready?
Yeah, I think I am.
Okay, wonderful. Question number 1. If any reform or changes to the current public safety system are being considered, are these community within the full scope of the daily challenges that
By simply saying there's been tremendous input that has been provided by, I think, every sector of our community who have wanted to provide either written, well, let's just say written comment, concerns, a different pathway forward. That input has been received by members of the police department, has been received by members of the city council, have been received by approximately 100 people who don't live in Pasadena, and hundreds of people who live in Pasadena. We have received testimony by writing from experts in the field, from folks who have actually conducted investigations. We've talked to the gentleman who is the staff for the police commission or sheriff's commission. We've talked to people involved in the Los Angeles oversight, in the Anaheim oversight. We've looked at models throughout the country, and significant number of those models were discussed in the April 18, 2016 report that was provided related to this discussion that we're having today and was had 4 years ago. So that's my answer to that particular question. And yes, you even have another opportunity to either speak at the Public Safety Committee tomorrow by sending your comments to Mark Chomsky, the city clerk, or have an opportunity to send in your comments for the city council meeting that will take place on the 17th of August at 2 p.m. or at a time that will publicize for all of you to consider. Next question.
Question number 2. Is the Pasadena City Council committed to ensuring the safety of all community members, both residential and commercial, and not allowing the kind of violence and destruction in our city that has been a bystander, such as Portland, Oregon?
Well, the brilliant leadership that was displayed by our current Chief of Police, John Perez, he engaged the community in a supportive way during the protests that was very respectful of the United States Constitution, the state constitution, and local laws. People need to be able to assemble peacefully and protest government and question those who are in authority. We invited that, we allowed it to take place in various sectors of our community, not in an adversarial sense, but in a supportive sense. There's no person in the city of Pasadena, in my view, whether they're a visitor, someone who lives here, commercial business, private business, nonprofit, who has any reasonable reason to feel unsafe. Next question.
Question number 3. I would like to know how participants think members should be chosen for a police oversight commission. I agree that the selection should avoid being a political process, but I am curious how the participants' effective oversight commission could be formed.
As it relates to how the committee is going to be constituted, unless the voters say they want to change the way in which we elect commissioners or the city council members, it's my view, and I'm not saying that view is shared by the 8 members of the city council, that we don't want the council members and the mayor to abdicate their responsibility given to them by the voters to make some selection of those members who would serve in the capacity on some oversight or community oversight body over the police department. If the voters are making frivolous appointments, certainly I would think that a council member or the mayor would hear from the populace in terms of the voters at the ballot box. So as it's now, the thought is that the council in some form would appoint a number of the members of the committee, and then secondarily, there may be a group, whether it's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People or the League of Women Voters or some other etc. I would not ascribe those attributes of the Willie Lynch letter to anything that has taken place in terms of the dialogue of civilian or community oversight of the police department. Having said that, the supermajority of letters, at least last Monday, related to whether they wanted to support Vice Mayor Hampton's approach or the Kennedy or the Tornick-Kennedy approach. The supermajority, by about 2/3 margin, were in favor of the Tornick-Kennedy approach, and I'd say approximately 1/3 an approach of what Vice Mayor and Councilmember Hampton provided. So I'm looking for the high ground. I'm not looking to immerse myself or may not exist in the evil of that letter as it relates to the plight of African Americans seeking justice in this country. That's my response. Next question, please.
Question 10. Can the loud proponents of a ballot measure now go out and get signatures to put a measure on the ballot in 2 years? If they believe that is the course, have you heard of any actual action by these proponents?
I've not heard of any action by those who would like us to go to the voters, that they are seeking signatures for some kind of referendum. Nevertheless, I would invite them to at least see what comes up and is voted upon and approved by the city council before that action is possibly taken, to see if there's a factual predicate laid for more reform at such an expeditious click. So, to be very clear, the voters do have that option with the necessary signatures to qualify for a ballot measure. Next question, please.
Question 11. Has there been any meeting of all the proponents of civilian oversight to work out a plan for civilian oversight that will pass in the city council and meet the subpoena power issue? If not, why not?
I believe that the city attorneys have shared with the council what subpoena power possibly could be effectuated without going to the voters. I also believe that venue for residents, voters, concerned citizens to voice their mottos, their concerns, their issues is in fact the Public Safety Committee and the City Council. And my view is that we have had robust discussion already. We will continue to have robust discussion that would culminate in a vote of the City Council related to possibly a derivation of the Tornick-Kennedy proposal. That's my answer. Next question, please.
The next questions are COVID-19 related, and you're running a little low on time. Would you like to address one or two of those?
Yes, and how do members on the line send their questions to the organizer of the meeting, so possibly they would have an opportunity to ask a question, even though the opportunity had already been given because you were provided questions that you asked of me from those who were invited to participate in this community dialogue. So is there an opportunity before we go to COVID for anyone to chat with you as the convener, Lena?
So Susanna has everyone's email, and she's emailed everyone. So if anyone have questions that have not been addressed, they could email Susanna directly, and she will make sure that Mr. Kennedy addresses them. I will email everyone just to make sure you have Susanna's email address. Does that make sense?
So we have 15 minutes more. I'm willing to take a couple of questions, important questions, because this is about satisfying the questions of the community. I'll take a couple questions on the COVID issue.
Hi, this is Diane Lewis. My question's not regarding the COVID. I just wanted to...
Excuse me, Diane. Lena?
I'm sorry?
Lena?
Yes.
Will you put people back on mute? The questions are coming from Susanna, Diane.
Oh, pardon me.
Susanna?
Yes, I'm here. So a couple of COVID-related questions. What is the new COVID-19 guideline on gatherings? The messages seem to be all over the map.
Before I answer that question, Susanna, if you're receiving questions from the members of this Zoom call, you will filter those questions and then ask me the questions, so there won't be anyone who's on the call having a feeling like they didn't have an opportunity to ask a question. The reason we're doing it that way is to make sure that we have structure, and just in case if there's someone who wanted to be disruptive, they would be disrupted by themselves alone. So back to the COVID question.
Would you like me to repeat it? So,
No, because I don't have an adequate answer.
Okay.
It's my understanding that restaurants are allowed to serve you if you're being served outside on a patio, but not in a confined area of the building. For example, if I were a restaurant at my home and there's no patio structure with appropriate distancing required by our health officer and the county and the governor's office, you would not be able to meet in the restaurant in my home. However, you would be able to meet in the restaurant outside. The 6 feet distancing is still required. The facial coverings are required anywhere you go outside, particularly if there are others around you, whether they be related to you or not. The reason I chuckled at the beginning is because the question provides the dilemma that we all are under, and that is seemingly these orders change, if not daily, weekly, and that's true. And that's based upon the empirical data that we are receiving in our hope to arrest the spread of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19. And so it is uncomfortable to me as much as it is for the person who asked the question, because on one day it was okay for me to dine in at whatever my favorite restaurant is or was, if it still exists. And then the very next day I couldn't do that anymore. Well, oftentimes it's not just our local health officer making the decision. Many of the times it has come through the governor's office or the county in the city of Pasadena can have more, but not less than what has been required by those two agencies, the state of California and the county of Los Angeles. So I don't have much more to offer other than to hope and pray that there will be fewer and fewer deaths in our community, that we all would stay vigilant, that we would practice social distancing, that we would wear a facial covering, and that we not take chances with other people's lives. If we don't want to commit suicide, that we not take chances with our own lives. I think it's safe to say that with the advice of your own personal health provider, that there are certain additional steps you can take. I'm not a doctor and I don't want to provide them, but as it relates to supplements, we know that a multivitamin of D, zinc, and calcium has some positive impact, but I am not a doctor. I'm not suggesting I'm a doctor. I'd invite you to talk to your own healthcare provider, whether they're asking you to take a probiotic, whether they're telling you how to wash your hands regularly. That covers the eyes as well as the mouth and nose. I think you can seek the advice of your own physician or healthcare provider in combination with the guidelines that come from Dr. Ying Ying Go of the Pasadena Health Department. Next question.
John, I received another question regarding the oversight. May I read that one?
Please.
Given the historical hesitance of police departments to make changes to policies and discipline officers, do we have any indications that the police department is interested in working together with the commission created by the Tornick-Kennedy proposal? In particular, given that the police department would not have to follow recommendations from the commission, what assurances do we have that the police department is willing and interested in earnestly taking under consideration and implementing policy changes and disciplinary actions recommended by the commission?
Well, my short-term memory as I grow older is not that good that I can remember all aspects of the question. But let me say this because it focuses on whether the police department would be a partner in the change we would like to see to provide additional community or civilian oversight of the police department. I think by virtue that we don't have members of the union standing up as they did 4 years ago and saying that we were off base completely is a positive. It doesn't necessarily say that the police department is totally embracing the Tornick-Kennedy model, but it seems to be a model that they can live with. The question is, are we, by the act of the council, providing additional light? Are we moving back a veil that some would call secrecy by engaging these brilliant members of the community on the commission? The answer to that question is in the affirmative. It is yes. I think the police department, under the leadership of a PhD by the name of John Perez, is more collaborative and more transparent than we have seen in my lifetime in the Pasadena Police Department. I have no reason to believe that that would change. As it relates to transparency, when the city manager is the final arbiter before it goes beyond, meaning to courts or the district attorney or some other adjudicative body, if the council believes that the city manager is anyway engaged in nefarious activity related to the unnecessary protection of the police department's actions, that would call in question the longevity of the city manager. And in the slang, we call that a C as in Charlie, L as in Larry, M as in Mary, a career limiting move. So hopefully the city manager is smart enough to give the city council the skinny, because we're demanding more, not less, oversight. So that's the best I can do in answering that question at the moment. Was there any other questions, Susanna, from those who are on the line?
One last question. Did you want to answer questions from the line, or this is another question?
I would like to answer questions that people who are on the line emailed to you.
Yes, this is one. And this is the last one, I think. If we don't pass an oversight commission now, where will it leave us?
For me, it really isn't an option. If we don't pass an oversight model, meaning civilian or community oversight model, I will help lead an effort. I repeat, I will help lead an effort to put a measure on the ballot for the voters of Pasadena to vote up or vote down. I prefer a process where the council speaks, because we are the duly elected first, and for us to take a look if that model works for the community. Does it in fact provide a serious measure of oversight before I take the next step? So I'm very optimistic, as I said in the Pasadena Now article, that we will get a measure passed by my colleagues and myself that will bring more civilian or community oversight of the Pasadena Police Department. Susanna?
I have no more questions.
Go ahead.
No, I have no more questions.
Okay, we have 3 minutes. Let's see. Lena, can you instruct us what is the next step, please?
So why don't you tell everybody the time of the public safety meeting tomorrow and invite everyone to that, because you're going to be doing some more nitty-gritty work on that, and then email everyone the link so they could sign in if they're interested.
You will do that?
Susanna.
Oh, Susanna will do that. Well, thank you very much for my sister, who some people think happens to be younger than me. It's not true. She's older than I am. I came out after she was born. Of the 10 children, I'm the 8th. So I'm younger. Thank you. So I'll take the admonitions of my older sister. And Lena has said to me that I need to share with you what time the meeting takes place tomorrow. I did that earlier. It is 3 p.m. for the Public Safety Committee meeting tomorrow. And then generally, the city council meets at 2 p.m. on the Monday, and all of them are special meetings because of COVID-19. So you are invited to send in your comments, questions, concerns, and they will be duly read or noted. And you'll have the option of saying whether you want your comment read or not. Now, as a wrap up, since it's 4:59, don't think I'm crazy. I know that a lot of people are not happy about how we're going forward, but I also know that the majority of folks are happy that we're having the discussion, that we're actually potentially going to get civilian or community oversight, that we are listening to the residents. And even though the council didn't put something on the ballot, the work that Vice Mayor Hampton did and others has helped fashion a greater appreciation of the importance for this activity called civilian oversight of the Pasadena Police Department or community oversight of the Pasadena Police Department. So it's not perfect. I know it's not perfect. You do not need to tell me that. But I would invite you all to stay engaged, hold us accountable, and let's see if we can make this first step and then make other steps as needed. I want to thank all of you for taking this time out of your busy schedules to be a part of this call, to share with me, to wrestle with me, in my view, in a hope to produce a better product for the whole community, not just John's view, but listening to the whole community that speaks up. With that, I want to thank you again for all being on the call, and I'll hopefully have several other calls of this, not of this particular subject, where we need action and not a bunch of words from talking heads like myself. Thank you very much. Have a nice week.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lena.
Thank you, John.
Thank
you. Thank you, Lena, too.
Go get it, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Thank you, Lena.
Thank you, Rosa.
John. Thank you, Lena.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Lena. Good job. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Susanna.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Susanna. Good job.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Susanna.
That's it.
Hey!
Let the people are.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Lena, for the invite.
It's for invite, Lena.
Thank you.
God bless you. Good job. Hey, hey, beautiful.
Hey, I just sweetheart. Good to see you.
Good to see you. You look wonderful. How you doing?
As always.
Yeah, I just take this off and I